Good morning. I welcome all of you to our worship service on this beautiful morning, the last Sunday in the season of Epiphany Transfiguration Sunday. So bright light is appropriate. If you're worshiping with us online this morning, we ask that you text your names to 203-800-7625. That will allow us to greet you later in the service. If you're looking for a bulletin for this morning's service, you can find that on the church's website. Just a quick reminder that we have on Tuesday evenings a Zoom Bible study. Everyone is welcome to join, so if you want to come just out of curiosity to see what's happening or to join in, please just contact me or Julie in the church office, and we'll make sure that you get the link that you need to do that. Worship will be in person every Sunday now. We are asking those who come to wear a mask and to sign in as they arrive. Singing is permitted, and there's a wonderful group of people here this Sunday, so please pay attention to your email for more information, or call the church office if you have questions. We do need volunteers as we resume our in-person worship. We need more people to serve as deacons for the Sunday worship service, to serve as greeters for people as they arrive, and to operate our live stream camera. So if you're interested in doing any of those things, you can sign up on the church website, or you can contact me in the church office. We will have an Ash Wednesday service Wednesday evening this week, the 2nd of March at 7 p.m. That will be both in person and online here at the church at 7 p.m. A quick reminder that the diaper bags for babies project that the Women's Fellowship has been working on concludes today. So if you had been meaning to bring a contribution, you can do that. They've been left off downstairs in the elevator entryway. Or if you want to make a financial contribution that allows them to purchase things that they need to get everything set, please feel free to do that as well. I just want to let everyone know that the Men's Fellowship will meet in person next Saturday at 8 a.m. in Carroll Hall. It won't be a breakfast, but it'll be a time for fellowship for all those who gather. So it'll be in person Saturday at 8 a.m. And the multi-church youth group, both the senior highs and the middle school groups, will be meeting for some jumping around today at the Funzie Trampoline Park on Dixwell Avenue. You should check your email. There's a place where you need to fill out an online waiver, and you need to RSVP. So if you're not sure how to do that, see me afterwards. As I mentioned last week, I had invited members of the congregation and others who might wish to make a contribution to the pastor's discretionary fund. That's a fund that is available to me to use in response to requests for pastoral assistance, which come both from within our congregation and from the community. It's a fund that has usually, in the past, been funded through the money that is raised for the purchase of poinsettias at Christmas time. So the extra money is applied to the discretionary account in some part. But we haven't been doing that for a couple years now. So if you'd like to make a contribution, you can mail that into the church or drop it off, or I believe you can do it also on the website. My thanks to everyone who continues to support the food pantry, such an important ministry in our community. And we want to continue to help people with their needs for food. So we appreciate donations of non-perishable food items, and also if people prefer financial contributions that help us to fill in items that aren't donated as regularly. Tim, do you want to make a...
Yes, if I could. Scott alluded to the men's fellowship train starting up again next Saturday, but I also want to draw attention to the third Saturday in March, in which we will be having an in-person gathering at the Book and
I'm just going to repeat that really quickly for people that are watching online. Tim was inviting people to an in-person gathering with breakfast on the third Saturday in March the 19th. That will happen at 7:30 in the morning at the Hook and Ladder Restaurant, which is part of the Best Western Hotel here in North Haven. I think the cost is right around $10. And if you're interested, it might be good just to let Tim know that you're coming. I want to thank Deacon Nancy Mahoney, who's leading worship with me this morning, along with Gary Snowbeck, our church organist, and Jeffrey Hutchins, the director of music, and Carly Etter, the coordinator for ministry to children. My thanks, too, to Julie Schweikert for her work in coordinating the details of our worship, preparing the bulletin. To our greeters this morning, Doris Ferner and Sue Compton, and our at-home deacon is Carol Amico. I invite you now to just take a moment to find yourself in the presence of God, to quiet your thoughts and turn all of your attention to God in this time of worship. Feel, if you will, the welcome that radiates from God, radiates from this place to include everyone who joins in worship this morning. Here in the sanctuary, there are more pews with people in them than there are pews without. It's wonderful. And certainly we extend a welcome to all of those who are joining us from other places. Whoever you are or wherever you are in your faith journey, you're welcome in our worship service this morning. Thank you.
join me in the responsive call to worship found in your order of service. The glory of God transfigures the everyday.
The light of God transfigures familiar faces.
At the heights of our worship, may God's presence shine through the commonplace.
At the depths of our pain and struggle, may God's presence give us courage and peace.
May God's light, shining in the face of Christ, illumine all our days. Amen. Let us pray together for peace. Great God, who has told us vengeance is mine, save us from ourselves. Save us from the vengeance in our hearts and the acid in our souls. Give us the strength it takes to listen rather than to judge, to trust rather than to fear, to try again and again to make peace even when peace eludes us. We ask, O God, for the grace to be our best selves. We ask for the humility as a people to understand the fears and hopes of other peoples. Give us the depth of soul, O God, to constrain our might, to resist the temptations of power, to refuse to attack the unattackable, to understand that vengeance begets violence, and to bring peace, not war, wherever we go. For you, O God, have been merciful to us. For you, O God, have been patient with us. For you, O God, have been gracious to us. And so may we be merciful and patient and gracious, and trusting with these others whom you also love. This we ask through Jesus, the one without vengeance in his heart. This we ask forever and ever. Amen.
You may be seated. Please join with me in the unison prayer of invocation. Mighty God, stay with us always, not only in our worship, but as we share the risk and challenge of living our faith. By your powerful Spirit, turn our fear into courage. Your glory shines in the face of Christ. Shine in our hearts and lives. May your name be praised, glorious God. Amen.
And let us continue to pray, offering our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Children may go to their Sunday school classes now.
The first lesson this morning is taken from the book of Exodus, reading from the 34th chapter, beginning at the 29th verse. Listen for the word of God. Moses came down from Mount Sinai As he came down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant in his hand, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, the skin of his face was shining, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses spoke with them. Afterward, all the Israelites came near, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would take the veil off until he came out. And when he came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, the Israelites would see the face of Moses, that the skin of his face was shining, and Moses would put the veil on his face again until he went in to speak with him. Here ends the reading. Thanks be to God. The second lesson this morning is taken from the Gospel according to Luke, reading from the 9th chapter, beginning at the 28th verse. Now, about 8 days after these sayings, Jesus took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly they saw 2 men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they had stayed awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Not knowing what he said, while he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent, and in those days told no one any of the things they had seen. On the next day, when they had come down from the mountain, a great crowd met them. Just then, a man from the crowd shouted, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son. He is my only child." Suddenly a spirit seizes him, and all at once he shrieks. It convulses him until he foams at the mouth. It mauls him and will scarcely leave him. I begged your disciples to cast it out, but they could not. Jesus answered, "You faithless and persevere generation, how much longer must I be with you and bear with you? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon dashed him to the ground in convulsions. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit, healed the boy, and gave him back to his father. And all were astounded at the greatness of God. Here ends the reading. Thanks be to God.
Please listen to a wonderful gift of music, a hymn from the 15th century, "O Wondrous Sight, O Vision Fair." This is sung by Jeff Hutchins.
O wondrous sight, O vision fair, of glory that the church shall share, which Christ upon the mountain shows, where brighter than the sun he glows. From law and prophets that have placed two chosen witnesses of grace, the Father's voice from out the cloud proclaims his only Son aloud. With shining face and bright array, Christ reigns to manifest today. What glory shall be theirs of all who join in God with perfect love. And faithful hearts are raised on high by this great vision's mystery, for which in joyful strains we raise the voice of prayer, the hymn of praise. Alleluia, 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 alleluia,
Let us pray. O God, most holy, most glorious, draw near to us now, that we might listen for your word, that we might behold your presence, that we might be filled and sent in your name. Amen. So there are mountains at the center of both of our scripture lessons this morning. Encounters with God often happen on mountains. If you look through the scriptures, you'll realize that that's the case. Perhaps it's because of the distance, the separation from the everyday routine that is important. Perhaps it's also the solitude that might be found at the mountaintop that makes an encounter more likely. But clearly today, we come to these stories of God and mountains from the valley. Our minds and our hearts are filled with shock and horror of invasion and war. And as we ponder this morning encounters with God on the mountain, we feel mired in the valley of brutality and suffering, of ruthless conquest, destruction, and death. What is it that we can find to lift us and sustain us in these passages this morning? The first passage, of course, comes from the book of Exodus, and it's a story of Moses, probably one of God's most important prophets, revered to God's people because Moses was the one who brought the law to the people, who brought the commandments, who went up on the mountain and disappeared into clouds filled with thunder and lightning and the presence of God, and came back with God's gift of the rules for the covenant between us and our God. And the story says that when Moses came down, without even knowing it, the skin of his face just shone as people looked at him. And it was so startling that at first they didn't want to go near him. They wanted to stay away. But Moses called the leaders to come closer, and he shared with them the message that he had brought down from God. And then at the end, it says that he put a veil over his face. And it became his custom to remove the veil when again he went up the mountain or into the presence of God. And then he replaced the veil, perhaps out of consideration for those who were uncomfortable or unsettled in his presence, seeing how his face shone. If we think about the story of that covenant and that encounter between Moses and God, of God's effort to care for the people who had been freed from slavery through God's work and God's power, who had wandered following Moses, the one whom God called to lead them, towards a promised land, a new beginning, the opportunity of a life in relationship and covenant with God, and the promise of blessing. But we remember as we think about that story, the description of the mountain upon which Moses went to meet God. We may remember that God warned Moses to warn the people that no one should come near that mountain. No one should touch the mountain. God warned them not to come too close to God's presence. So it's a sign of God's confidence and love and mission for Moses that he's permitted to go up the mountain into the close presence of God and bring down the message, the laws that God would give the people. In the gospel passage, there's another encounter at the top of a mountain. In this case, Jesus has taken 3 of the disciples, Peter and John and James, up with him to the top of the mountain. And while they're there, you heard the description of Jesus' face changing and the brilliant light that shone from him, and then the presence of Moses and Elijah, perhaps the other second greatest prophet, and the conversation that the disciples were able to witness between Moses and Elijah and Jesus, as Jesus spoke of his impending departure at Jerusalem. Now think for a moment about something. In that gospel passage, there's Moses and Elijah and Jesus together. Moses and Elijah both had points in their service to God where they asked to see God. When they asked, God initially refused both of them. But Moses persisted, and God said, well, I'll put you in this safe little crack in the rocks over here. And you can watch while I pass by. And the scripture says that Moses was able to see where God had just been. That was as much as he was permitted. You may remember the story of Elijah carrying messages of God to God's people only to be ignored, only to find himself in conflict with the rulers who believed and followed another God, who fled from their threats against him, once again to a mountain, and standing in a cave. The story says that there was a mighty earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. And then there was a huge roaring fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And then there was the sound of sheer silence. And God said to Elijah, "What are you doing here?" Elijah tried to explain and make an excuse, but God told Elijah to go right back where he'd come from and finish the work. Jesus didn't have to ask to see God. Jesus and God have been together since the very beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So we have this interesting clue about who God is and how we can follow God. The Hebrew word for glory means weight. And so the Hebrew meaning of glory really is weightiness or importance. Glory is something that flows from God because of God's supreme power and importance. It's different from holiness. Holiness is the quality of God that is one of distance and separation. One that defines the difference between where God is and, for the most part, where we find ourselves. So that holiness, again, rooted in God's ultimate goodness and power, that holiness is what gives the inclination towards fear. When we're in the presence of God, humans are fearful because God's goodness is unsurpassable. And if you remember the story of the prophet Isaiah, you remember that one of the instant responses to being in the presence of God is to be fully aware and filled with sadness at our sinfulness in comparison. For humans to come towards the presence of God is to become aware of falling short of what God has asked of us, of the covenant in which we are graced and loved into living together with God. Have come to some position of comfort with the idea of being in the presence of God. Somehow the fearfulness, the disturbing, arresting sensation of being in the presence of a goodness and a love and a righteousness that's barely even imaginable has been tamed and domesticated. Maybe it's just too hard to maintain that care and wariness. The writer Annie Dillard wrote in her book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, about the importance of recalling every now and then the reality of the power and the meaning and the experience of God's glory. She wrote, "It is madness to wear ladies' straw hats and velvet hats to church. We should all be wearing crash helmets. Ushers should issue life preservers and signal flares. They should lash us to our pews. For the sleeping God may wake someday and take offense. Or the waking God may draw us out where we can never return." So how many of you have ever stood on a mountaintop? Higher. So you can recall that moment, that experience. You can recall what you could see from there. You remember the work that it took to get there. And you're here right now, which means you didn't stay there. But within you, you have the power of the experience of that moment. The vista, perhaps the unusual clarity being that much higher, perhaps stillness, perhaps some distance from all the daily rigmarole, a moment of somehow clearer, closer, more powerful perception of life and light and blessing. The disciples were sleepy when they got up the mountain with Jesus. And so they were a little bit startled by the appearance of Moses and Elijah and the bright light. But it was Peter who roused himself and blurted out, we really should do something to celebrate this moment. We should make a place of worship for each of the three of you. It was kind of one of those things that gets blurted out in the midst of of an overwhelming experience, when what is being seen and heard and felt just doesn't really connect with anything that could be said in a meaningful way. And the story says that clouds enveloped them, and they heard the voice of God. The voice of God saying, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And then in a moment, they were alone again with Jesus. Everything seemed more normal, but it wouldn't ever be the same. These stories describe for us the impact of a faithful, steadfast, seeking, reaching, trying, hoping, beginning again and again relationship with God and with Jesus. They describe, it would seem, the reality that people who have been in close presence to God might be recognized somehow by a particular light that fills them, that you can see in their eyes, might be recognized by some sense of peace and purpose that is unwavering and persistent. This is a very important reality for our life of faith. There's so much that threatens to overtake us and overwhelm us. There are so many troubles. There's so much brokenness. There's so much suffering. There are so many ways when we look around that we notice that the world around us doesn't measure up to either the promises of God or the call of God in Jesus. And so we're called, we're invited to be sent out to describe the possibility of such an encounter, to describe the possibility of a life that veers always towards God and Jesus, and the hope that it might bring, and the peace that it might bring, and the change and the difference that it might make. God and Jesus through us. It's hard to imagine anything more important to reflect on, to dwell on, to tussle with when we find ourselves in such a place of confusion and anguish and sorrow and helplessness, seemingly, in the midst of world events that fill us with pain and dismay. There is a presence that yearns for our response. There is a light that yearns to shine through us. It's a light that is so powerful that it's frightening. But the possibility of reflecting that light, even in the smallest degree, is a possibility that offers such hope and such wonder and such opportunity in the midst of everything that otherwise seems inescapable. Amen. I invite you to take a deep breath. To feel the prayers that rise within you. To acknowledge the hopes that you have this morning, the questions. To acknowledge what it is that you need in this moment. Let us be together in prayer. We begin and give thanks for the beautiful flowers on the communion table this morning, given by Carla Hill in memory of her brother, Brian James, in celebration of what would have been his 59th birthday. We lift up prayers for those named in our order of worship, for Linda Shannon and Betsy Gumbart, for Marcia Folds and Martha Swarney, Marlene Bolaño and Lorraine Burge, Shirley Ryan and Joyce Bolaño, and Ellen Robert and Treffel Robert. We wish a happy birthday today to Doris Vigliato, and in the coming week to Mark Butterworth, to Julie Schweikert, Stephen Barraquin and Aaron Barraquin, Sophia Keeler, Amelia Murphy and Jacqueline Murphy, Francis Dutko, and Cheryl Dutko. And we wish a very happy wedding anniversary to Fran and Cheryl Dutko. We want to lift up in our prayers those among our congregation and our acquaintances who are struggling with cancer. And so we offer prayers this morning for Janet and Chris, for Marcia and Misty, for Roy and Elaine Smith and Joseph Basivius. We pray for Jordan and her father, for Martha and for Anna, for Karen and Annie. We lift up prayers for Sarah Gladkowski and for Jackie, for Jake Smith and Rich Baldino, prayers that remission from cancer might continue. Joanne Nottingham asks that we lift up prayers for her family's dog, 8-month-old puppy Charlie, who's recovering after an attack by another dog in the neighborhood. Charlie needed several surgeries and is now at home with a long road ahead of her. So let us offer prayers for a steady and gentle recovery. Joanne also asks for prayers for her father, Joseph Basivius, whose cancer has returned in his leg bone. So we pray for prayers of strength and of healing. Mary Gladkowski emailed with the prayers that likely fill all of our hearts this morning, prayers for the people of Ukraine in the midst of invasion and war. Prayers for those who are at home, fleeing danger or staying and caring for family and neighbors, or perhaps joining in the fight for their freedom. Prayers for those who, rooted in Ukraine, live abroad and are filled with worry and dismay for family and loved ones. I learned this morning that we had prayed last week for Z, the daughter of Meg Adams' aide, Stella, who, as a medical student, has been studying in Kyiv, Ukraine, and she is safe. So we know that this morning. And so let us pray with faith, with power, and with trust. Let's begin our prayer in silence. Most holy God, there are times when we come to church so cheerfully and happily that we barely even notice the journey to get here. But it hasn't really been that way for a couple of years now. And there are other times when we come to church weighed down, frightened, bewildered, overcome. And we feel this might be the only place where we can open up and release all that fills us and weighs us down and take hold of your healing balm. Hear our prayers, O God. Prayers for a place that is far away, but somehow in our hearts now. Prayers for people whom we cannot name, but we can imagine. And we can find connections to them. And prayers for the movement of troops and the response of leaders. We pray for peace. We pray for an end to fighting and hostilities. We pray for safety for those who are weak or helpless in the face of invasion and destruction. And we ask, O God, that you be with those in the midst of the fighting and the fearfulness, and that you be with us as well. Help us. Help us to move against this senselessness, to stand up for freedom, for the preservation of life, for the peaceful resolution of differences. In the recognition that all people are your people, regardless of how they name you or the degree to which they serve you or pay you any regard. All people are your people. Hear all of our prayers, O God. May you offer healing where it is needed and peace where it will be effective, comfort and courage and loving presence in the midst of all that is upset. Sustain us and call us and send us to bear the light that will never be darkened, to share the love that cannot be pushed aside. Be our God and help us to be your people. Amen. Let me take a moment and greet those who are watching and worshiping online this morning. Jim and Joan Bennett, Rob and Kim Natoli, Cheryl and Peter Hall, Gail Fulop, Carla Hill, Linda Lacobelli, Sue Tiber, Bob and Barbara Scheidecker, Paula Deal, Linda Shannon, Bernie and Elfie, Michelle and Michael McBride, Bill Olmsted, Jody Gallagher, Joyce and Ted Manzo, Tracy Weiss, Shirley Ryan, Leslie and Jim Dockendorf, Cindy Carnes from Florida, Elaine Burr, Peter and Vicky Struck, Chris Dockendorf and Carrie Leonard, Tom, Wendy, and Tucker Glynn, Cynthia Campos and Jordan Borma, Jane and Kurt Andrews, and at-home deacon Carol Amico. And now I invite you to stand and lift your hearts and voices in gratitude to God as we make our morning offering.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise God, all creatures here below. Praise God above the heavenly host. Creator Christ and Holy Ghost.
O God of blessing and of curse, of life and of death, give us ears to hear the word of life in Christ with all its stark demand. Enable us to hear your good news when Christ asks us to give ourselves in faith to you, that we may attain your blessing. Amen. I invite you to share in a greeting of peace and to carry it with you through all of this week. May the peace of God in Jesus Christ be with you always. Please join in singing our closing hymn, O Jesus, I Have Promised, number 120 in the Voices United hymnal. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of God has risen upon you. God has loved us from before all time. In our here and now, let us receive and reveal God's love through the grace of Jesus Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. Permission to podcast and stream the music in this service was obtained from one license with license A719615. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Amen. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for Hello. How are you? Good to see you guys. I think I am. Yes, I did. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yep, absolutely. So, oh, you know what? Yeah. It's okay.
servant